Are you trying to get me fined again?
I am not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of physicality that they're able to play with against her. I knew it as an opponent, and I see it as her coach. I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is. And we've got to help her learn to adjust and use it against them in certain ways.
Every time these two teams go up against one another, something happens, and it's honestly never good. It's never good, and of course the biggest story of the night.
Caitlin Clark has finally spoken, and the timing couldn't be more critical. For days, there has been growing frustration boiling over across the women's basketball world. A storm of social media outrage, petitions flying across platforms, fans reselling their All-Star tickets in protest, and a deafening silence from the WNBA itself. At the center of all this controversy is one of the most talked about moments in recent league history. A high-profile collision between Indiana Fever's Caitlin Clark and Washington's Jacy Sheldon that ignited a firestorm. And now, after all the dust, noise, and speculation, Clark has broken her silence. Not with dramatics, not with anger, but with a short, powerful statement that's shaking the very foundation of how the league treats its brightest stars. It all began with what looked like just another intense game, Indiana taking on Washington in a matchup that was already buzzing with tension. Clark was doing what she always does, leading, attacking, setting the tone for her team. She was on pace for a triple-double. 14 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. The Fever had momentum. They were pushing toward what could have been their third straight win. But then it happened. A moment that froze the entire arena and rippled across the basketball world. As Caitlin made a pass to Kelsey Mitchell and turned to get back on defense, Jacy Sheldon extended her knee. That knee made direct contact with Clark's groin, dropping her instantly. The pain was obvious, her face contorted, her movements stalled, and in that instant, the game changed. What made it worse wasn't just the hit, it was everything that came after, or more accurately, what didn't. No whistle, no foul, no review. The referee stared directly at the play and made no call. It wasn't just a missed foul. To many, it looked like a message. It sent shockwaves through fans and players alike. But perhaps even more alarming was the league's response, or lack thereof. For nearly 3 days, the WNBA remained silent. No public statement, no video breakdown, not even a confirmation that the incident was being looked into. The only thing fans got was growing speculation about Clark's injury status and an overwhelming sense of confusion and anger about why the league was ignoring something so blatant. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, said nothing in the immediate aftermath. She stayed quiet, even as social media went into overdrive, even as her teammates looked stunned, even as fans demanded answers. And that silence, oddly enough, is part of what made her eventual words so powerful. After a post-practice media session days later, Clark addressed the situation with a calm but direct tone that couldn't be misunderstood. She said, "I love this game. I play with passion. But it's hard when it feels like I'm the only one not getting protected." That single quote wasn't just a complaint. It was a turning point, a generational talent, a player who's become...
Jacy Sheldon was eventually suspended for 1 game. The league buried that announcement in a quiet, nondescript update on their website. No press release, no press conference, no league executive standing up to explain the reasoning. It was almost like they hoped no one would notice, but fans noticed. Oh, they noticed. Within hours of the suspension announcement, All-Star ticket listings exploded online. Premium seats, front row access, courtside opportunities, all being sold or even given away. Not because fans suddenly disliked the sport, but because they felt betrayed. Because when the most exciting player in the league is taken down in plain view and barely anyone lifts a finger to acknowledge it, that's not just a mistake, it's a crisis. It also raises a bigger question. Why does Caitlin Clark seem to be treated differently? Why is she taking so many hits, so many uncalled fouls, with so little consequence for the opposition? Is it jealousy from other players? Is it hesitation from officials afraid to look like they're giving special treatment? Or is it a systemic failure in how the league manages rising stars? Whatever the reason, the impact is obvious. Clark is walking a tightrope every time she steps on the court. One moment she's dishing out a highlight reel assist, the next she's doubled over from a knee to the midsection. And the worst part? There's no clarity on whether it's going to stop. The reaction from Clark's coach hinted at deeper frustration. When asked to describe the physical toll Caitlin faces on a nightly basis, her coach paused, sighed, and carefully chose her words. "Are you trying to get me fined again?" she asked, half joking but clearly serious. That comment alone speaks volumes. It suggests that behind closed doors, even coaches are aware of a problem, one they feel powerless to address without facing league penalties themselves. She eventually added, "There's a level of physicality that they're allowed to play with against her. I'm not exactly sure why, but it just is what it is." That quote echoed Clark's earlier sentiment. The people closest to Caitlin, her coaches, her teammates, her supporters, are beginning to feel that she's not being given a fair chance to succeed. And when fairness goes out the window, credibility follows. The WNBA is growing. There's no doubt about that. Record viewership, sold-out games, new fans tuning in by the millions. And much of that growth is directly tied to Caitlin Clark's arrival. She's not just a player, she's a movement. She's introduced a new generation of fans to women's basketball. She's brought intensity, energy, and storylines to a league desperately craving attention. But how long can that momentum last if the league's brightest star is left to fend for herself? As the days unfolded following Jacy Sheldon's suspension, the aftermath only intensified. Fans didn't just see a foul, they saw a trend. They saw a player, week after week, being subjected to excessive contact that crossed the line of competition. And the deeper concern was no longer just about one game or one hit. It was about the culture being allowed to thrive in silence. A culture where a player like Caitlin Clark, who is undeniably the league's most marketable and visible star, can be openly targeted without real consequence. That silence from the league office, it didn't just speak volumes, it shouted. To truly understand how we got here, you have to rewind the tape. The tension between Caitlin Clark and Jacy Sheldon didn't begin in the WNBA. Their rivalry stems from college basketball. They had heated matchups in the NCAA, physical confrontations that often resulted in elbows, hard screens, and even an eye poke earlier this year. This wasn't a random act. It was the latest chapter in a long, simmering battle between two highly competitive athletes. But unlike their previous battles, this time it was personal and public. When Sheldon extended her knee and made that contact, it wasn't just unfortunate timing or clumsy footwork. It looked like intent. And when the referee stood by without a whistle, fans couldn't help but feel that Clark was being hung out to dry. Social media responded in the way only social media can, immediately, emotionally, and explosively. Clips of the hit were slowed down, analyzed, posted, and reposted. Influencers jumped in, commentators weighed in, and even former players voiced their concern. One prominent former NBA player tweeted, "If LeBron or Steph got hit like that and there was no call, the league would be in crisis mode within an hour." That comparison struck a nerve. It highlighted the double standard. In most professional sports leagues, especially those with rising stars, you protect your stars. Not by giving them special treatment, but by enforcing the rules equally. Fairly, transparently. That clearly wasn't happening here. And that's when fans began doing something unusual. They started tagging Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, the very person who had once expressed public support for growing the WNBA. Tweets flooded in asking him to intervene. Instagram posts pleaded for NBA oversight. Some questioned if the WNBA leadership was truly equipped to handle the growth surge it's experiencing, largely fueled by Caitlin Clark. Whether those messages reached Silver directly or not is uncertain, but one thing was obvious. The public was losing patience with WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Engelbert's continued silence became harder to defend. While the league confirmed Sheldon's suspension, she herself didn't issue a statement. No video response, no media appearance, no comments on officiating standards, player safety, or plans for ensuring that what happened to Clark wouldn't happen again. For a commissioner, silence in moments of crisis isn't neutral, it's defining, and fans were taking note. If Caitlin Clark could be the engine behind record-setting ratings, surging merchandise sales, and rising attendance, but still couldn't get a public show of support from the league's top official after a dangerous on-court incident, what message does that send? Within the Indiana Fever organization, frustration started boiling over. Reports began to surface that team staff were furious behind the scenes. Teammates were rattled. Some expressed confusion about why Clark wasn't being protected. Others openly wondered whether the league was reluctant to defend her for fear of backlash or optics. Even broadcasters calling Fever games started sounding more concerned. And Caitlin? Well, she kept playing, or tried to, but it was clear something wasn't right. Her movement was different. That signature explosiveness was muted. The groin injury, initially labeled minor, was now looking more serious. Analysts began speculating that she might have torn something. If that's true, it's not just a physical setback, it's a massive blow to the Fever and to the WNBA as a whole. The All-Star Game looms large in this story. It was supposed to be Caitlin Clark's national showcase, the moment where her regular season success would be amplified on a bigger stage. Prime time, larger audience, major sponsors watching closely. And now, that appearance hangs in the balance. If she misses the game, it's not just disappointing, it's symbolic. The league's breakout star might not participate in its most celebrated event, all because of an incident that could have and should have been prevented. Yet despite all this, Clark's public statements have remained measured. She hasn't pointed fingers. She hasn't demanded special treatment. But the subtext in her words is impossible to ignore. "I just want fair treatment, the same whistles everyone else gets," she said. That wasn't bitterness. That was a clear call for equality. A plea for the league to treat her as they would any other player. Or more accurately, as they would treat any player who wasn't under a microscope. And what made that quote resonate even more was what came next. "I'll heal. I'll be fine. But the league has to decide what kind of game it wants this to be." That quote. That one right there. It's not just a sentence, it's a challenge, a wake-up call, a subtle yet unmistakable shot across the bow. Because this isn't about one play, one game, or even one rivalry. It's about a league at a crossroads. Will it allow players to be consistently targeted under the guise of physical play? Or will it draw a line and say, enough is enough? The WNBA has grown more in the last 2 years than in the previous decade, and a large part of that growth is thanks to new faces like Caitlin Clark, players who bring not just skill, but charisma, marketability, and generational appeal. But with that growth comes responsibility. You can't enjoy the benefits of having a global star without ensuring she's protected within the rules of the game. You can't build media campaigns around her, promote her jersey, and spotlight her highlights, while letting her get hammered every other night without recourse. That's not how any professional league should operate. And what's most frustrating for fans is that this was a chance, a real chance, for the WNBA to get it right, to show that they understood the stakes, that they were evolving with the times, but instead, they went quiet. And when they did respond, it felt like a whisper. One game, no explanation, no video, just a line on a website and back to business as usual. That's not enough anymore. At this point, the issue is no longer confined to the court. It's grown beyond just basketball. What we're seeing unfold is a much larger discussion about leadership, accountability, and how professional sports handle their stars when adversity hits. The WNBA, with all its positive momentum, is now facing a credibility test it didn't see coming and can't afford to ignore. Caitlin Clark's emergence was supposed to be the start of a new era. Instead, it's becoming a referendum on whether the league can keep up with its own growth. The timing couldn't be more critical. Sponsorships are rising, broadcast deals are gaining value, viewership is surging. Corporate partners are taking notice of the new energy Caitlin Clark brings. But what will those same sponsors think when they see the league's biggest asset clutching her leg in pain after yet another uncalled hit? What message does it send when footage of the incident dominates trending pages, while the league itself seems to pretend nothing happened? If perception is reality, then the WNBA is teetering on the edge of an avoidable narrative, one where its leadership appears indifferent to protecting the very people who are making the league matter again. And let's not forget, this isn't just about the fans watching from home or the arena seats left empty in protest. This is about the young athletes watching too, the thousands of girls wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys to school, the middle schoolers practicing her step-back three, the high school players dreaming of one day making it to the WNBA. When they see her get hurt, when they see the silence that follows, they're watching more than just a game. They're watching how the system treats those who break barriers. And if what they see is neglect, the impact is deeper than ratings or headlines. It's generational. The emotional weight of this situation hasn't gone unnoticed among Clark's peers either. Teammates, coaches, and even opponents have acknowledged her resilience. Despite the hits, she keeps showing up. Despite the pain, she keeps leading. And that in itself speaks volumes. Clark has every reason to lash out, to point fingers, to demand change through forceful words. But she hasn't done that. Instead, she's used calm statements, deliberate pauses, and thoughtful phrasing to make her point, and somehow that's even more powerful. She's shown that you don't have to scream to be heard. Sometimes all it takes is one perfectly timed sentence. And that's what's happening now. Clark's subtle yet cutting remarks are cutting through the noise. They're forcing league executives, media members, and even rival fan bases to ask difficult questions. Why is she absorbing this much contact every game? Why does it take public pressure for the league to act? And most importantly, why are we even still debating this? Shouldn't player safety, especially for your biggest draw, be the most basic priority? When Clark said, "The league has to decide what kind of game it wants this to be," it wasn't just about officiating, it was about everything. It was about whether this league wants to be known as a place where talent is nurtured or a place where talent is punished for succeeding too quickly. It was about whether the WNBA is ready for prime time in every sense, not just with cameras and ticket sales, but with infrastructure, support, and vision. Because that's what this era demands. A single game suspension for Sheldon might check the box of accountability, but it doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't assure fans that Clark will be safe the next time she takes the court. It doesn't guarantee that referees will be more alert or that league leadership will be more transparent. That's why fans remain uneasy. That's why resold tickets continue to pile up online. That's why people are still talking. Because the league missed a moment, and the consequences of that missed moment could ripple into the future. Clark's challenge to the league is really a challenge to all of us, to media, to fans, to institutions. Are we going to normalize what's happening to her, or are we going to demand better? Are we going to keep applauding her highlights while ignoring the toll? Or are we finally going to acknowledge that if a player like Caitlin Clark doesn't feel protected, the entire system is flawed? And here's the most important part. Clark is not asking for special treatment. She's asking for equal treatment. The same fouls, the same whistles, the same protection any other player would receive. The fact that she even has to say this out loud is a red flag in itself, because the best leagues in the world don't need to be told to protect their stars. They just do it. The WNBA still has time to correct the course. They can address officiating standards, they can empower referees to take stronger action against repeat offenders, they can publicly stand by their players when something goes wrong. They can show that Caitlin Clark, and every other player who steps on that court, is valued not just as a performer, but as a person. Because if they don't, the price isn't just one player's health. It's the trust of an entire fan base. It's the loyalty of people who bought into the new era. It's the credibility of a league that says it wants to grow, but sometimes acts like it's afraid of its own success. That trust, once lost, is incredibly hard to regain. Caitlin Clark is not just a scorer. She's not just a passer. She's not just the latest jersey bestseller or headline generator. She is the lightning rod that brought attention to a league that was long overdue for a spotlight. And she's doing all of this while navigating a spotlight that very few could handle with the poise she's shown. If anyone has earned the right to be heard, it's her. And now that she's spoken, the ball is in the league's court. So what happens next? That's the question. The next few weeks will tell us everything we need to know about the WNBA's direction. Will they rise to meet the challenge? Will they protect their stars and invest in a stronger foundation for the future? Or will they allow this moment to pass without learning anything? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. Caitlin Clark has drawn the line. She's no longer just carrying the league's popularity, she's shaping its future. And that, more than anything, is why the league must listen. Not later, not eventually, but now. Because when a player like Clark calls out the system, even quietly, it's not noise. It's the sound of change demanding to be heard.